Before we start, if you think you've heard every kind of crime story, think again. Subscribe, hit that bell, and remember, silence hides more secrets than screams. It started on a humid August night in Cedarvale, a small town that liked to believe nothing bad ever happened there. The kind of town where everyone waved to everyone, where porch lights stayed on for neighbors, and where no one locked their doors. Until her song started. At first, it was almost comforting. Every night, just after 9:30, the same tune drifted through the quiet suburban streets. A faint melody, a woman's voice humming, sometimes singing a few soft lyrics. The windows of 27 Willow Lane, where Mara Ellison lived, would glow faintly from her kitchen. Her neighbors thought it was just a habit, something harmless. Until she vanished. On August 12th, a Thursday, no one heard the song. At 10:15 p.m., neighbor Tommy Hale noticed the silence. He'd grown used to that voice echoing faintly through his backyard fence. That night, he leaned out his kitchen window and realized something felt wrong. Not because he heard nothing, but because the air itself seemed expectant, heavy. At 11, he texted Mara's phone to check in. No reply. By morning, her front door was still locked, her car still in the driveway, her cat pacing behind the living room curtains. But Mara Ellison, 29, piano teacher, quiet, polite, was gone. When Detective Laura Finch arrived, the first thing she noticed was how normal everything looked. There was no forced entry, no blood, no broken glass. But when she stepped into the kitchen, she paused. The radio on the counter was on, just static. And beside it, a glass of wine half empty, the stem still wet. The strangest detail? The power cord had been cut cleanly, but the radio was still humming faintly through the static, like it hadn't realized it was dead. Finch ordered a full sweep. Forensics, K9 units, neighbors interviewed, cell tower pings analyzed, nothing. Mara's phone last pinged at 9:41 p.m., at home. And yet, one odd pattern began to emerge. When the detectives canvassed the block, nearly every resident mentioned the same thing. That song. One neighbor described it as a lullaby, but kind of sad. Another said it sounded like a music box underwater. They'd all heard it, every night for weeks before she disappeared, but none could remember when it started. And when Finch played recordings of popular songs from Mara's playlists, no one recognized the melody. It didn't match anything she owned. At noon, a technician from the audio lab arrived to examine the radio. He leaned close, adjusted a dial, then froze. He turned to Finch and whispered, "It's not static, it's playback." Inside the device's memory chip was an audio loop, repeating endlessly, faint, distorted, but unmistakable. A woman humming. Not Mara's voice. Lower, older, slower. When the sound was cleaned up, the team realized something else. In the background of the hum, beneath the hiss of static, faint metallic clinks, like a chain brushing against concrete. Detective Finch widened the scope of the investigation. Neighbors within a 2-block radius were interviewed again. This time, one man, Harold Watkins, mentioned something no one else had. He lived 2 houses down. "It's strange," he said. "That song, it wasn't coming from her window most nights. It was echoing from somewhere farther away. Maybe the old storage units behind her house, the ones they shut down years ago." Those units had been abandoned since 2017 after a fire. The owners boarded them up and fenced the area. No one was supposed to go near them. By 4 p.m., Finch and 2 officers cut the lock and entered the overgrown lot. Rows of rusted metal doors stretched across the weed-choked lot, each numbered in peeling paint. The air was still, hot, and metallic. Then they found Unit 12B. The padlock was new, shiny against all the others.
Inside, it smelled of bleach and damp cardboard. Shelves of old cassette tapes lined the walls. In the center, an old reel-to-reel recorder sat connected to a timer switch, rigged to play at exactly 9:30 p.m. each night. The tape on it was labeled in neat handwriting, "For her." When they played it, Finch felt a chill creep up her arms. The tape began with soft humming, then faint piano keys, then, in the background, a woman's laugh. Mara's laugh. And then abruptly, silence. A sharp click, and a faint scraping sound, like a chair being pulled across the floor. By evening, Finch knew this was no random disappearance. Someone had planned every detail: the timing, the sound, the recording, even the false sense of safety the neighborhood felt. Whoever had made those tapes had been close enough to record Mara in her own home. When the techs examined the other tapes, they found 5 more labeled by date, one for each of the previous nights that neighbors remembered hearing the song. Each started the same: humming, piano, a glass clink, a laugh, and silence. But the last tape, the one labeled Night 6, August 12, was different. At the 30-second mark, after the music faded, there was a whisper. A man's voice, calm, quiet, close to the microphone. He said, "She finally learned the tune." Then, the sound of a chair falling, followed by what might have been footsteps leaving. Detective Finch had the tapes bagged as evidence. The radio was sealed, the unit cordoned off. As night fell, she stood in Mara's kitchen, staring at the unplugged cord, still resting beside the counter. The hum was gone. For the first time in weeks, the neighborhood was silent again. She exhaled, rubbed her temples, and muttered to herself, "If this was about control, he's not done." The crime tech glanced over. "What do you mean?" Finch nodded towards the tape boxes lined up on the table. "There are 6 recordings," she said. "But look at this." She flipped the lid open. Inside the foam insert, empty space for one more tape. Labeled neatly, Night 7.
Detective Laura Finch didn't sleep that night. She sat in her car outside the Cedarvale Police Department, engine idling, the air thick with the hum of streetlights. The last tape, Night 7, haunted her. There was no recording inside the empty slot, but that label, it was deliberate. A message. Whoever made those tapes wasn't finished. By 7 a.m., she was back at the station, a coffee trembling in her hand as the audio technicians worked. The room was cold, filled with low electronic buzzing as files processed on the monitors. Lead tech, Elliot Marsh, called her over. "There's something underneath the song," he said. "Every recording, same hum pattern, exact decibel variance. It's mechanical, like a generator or a fan, but irregular." "Could it be background noise from her house?" Finch asked. Elliot shook his head. "No, the signature doesn't match anything recorded at her address. It's low, industrial. Could be from, I don't know, a workshop or a basement. And here's the weird part." He boosted the audio gain. Each tape starts with the same tone sequence, barely audible before the humming begins. It's a trigger sound, like a cue to start recording. Finch frowned. "A pattern." He nodded. "Exactly. It's deliberate. Someone built these tapes to train something, or someone." That afternoon, Finch drove to Mara Ellison's sister, Lydia, who lived 2 towns over. Lydia was sharp, cautious, and visibly exhausted. She hadn't spoken to Mara for 6 months. "She shut everyone out," Lydia said, flipping through old photos. "All she talked about was that new student she had. Said he was talented, but strange. Always asked to record their sessions." Finch straightened. "A student?" Lydia nodded. "He was around 20, quiet, paid in cash, said he wanted to learn how to make sound beautiful again." She paused. But there was something off about him. He'd just sit there, eyes closed, listening more than playing.
Finch asked for a name. Lydia hesitated, then said softly, "He called himself Calder." Back at the precinct, a database search turned up nothing. No Calder, no school enrollment, no license, no record. Finch leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't a ghost. It was someone who'd erased themselves. By evening, Finch had a new lead. One of the storage unit cameras across from the abandoned lot had recorded movement 3 nights before Mara vanished. Grainy footage showed a tall figure unloading something from a truck at 2 a.m., boxes of audio reels, and unmistakably, a piano bench. They traced the truck's plate to a rental company in Madison. The name on the receipt? Evan Calder. Signed, not typed. When Finch arrived at the rental depot, the manager confirmed the signature. Yeah, he was polite. Tall, long hair, wore those old-style headphones around his neck. Asked if our trucks were soundproof. He laughed nervously. Thought he was a musician. At 9:47 p.m., Finch drove to the address listed on Calder's rental form. It wasn't a home. It was a 2-story brick warehouse on the edge of town, half renovated, the upper windows boarded. A fading sign above the door read, "Echo Tone Audio Restoration." Her flashlight cut across peeling walls and scattered equipment. Cassette players, reel machines, wires coiled like veins across the floor. In one corner, she spotted something that made her stop. An array of speakers facing a single chair. On the chair sat a small cassette recorder. It was running. The tape clicked softly as it reached the end, rewound, and started again. A woman's voice, Mara's voice, whispered through the static. "Please stop recording." The hair on Finch's arms lifted. She turned toward the far end of the room, where a dim red light blinked on a small monitor. Live feed, grainy, black and white. The camera was fixed on her. Someone had been watching the entire time. Outside, she called for backup, but the warehouse was quiet. No vehicles, no footsteps. The tech team swept the building, pulling apart every device, bagging every tape. They found hundreds, labeled with dates, initials, addresses. The earliest one read NH 2014. Each one cataloged a different victim. But there was something stranger. The newest box wasn't marked with a name. It was marked LF Night 7, Laura Finch's initials. Forensics spent the next 48 hours combing through the warehouse. The hard drives revealed thousands of sound files, most less than 30 seconds long. Fragments of humming, breathing, whispers. In one folder titled Perfect Silence, they found meticulously detailed notes about how sound travels through walls, how human ears can be trained to anticipate noise, and how silence can be weaponized. Every file had a timestamp. The last one matched the night Mara vanished, and it contained the following line, typed neatly. When she stopped singing, the silence answered back. Finch didn't sleep again that night. She replayed every line of every tape until her ears rang. The whispering, the low hum, the faint scrape, it all blurred together, forming a rhythm she couldn't unhear. It wasn't just noise. It was method, repetition, control. The kind of precision that only comes from obsession. Then, on the third day, something broke the routine. At 3:12 a.m., the same time Mara vanished, the precinct's audio lab received a new email. No sender, no subject, just a single attachment. Room 9.final. The timestamp showed it had been sent from within the department's own network. Finch's pulse kicked hard. She said, "Play it." The file opened with silence, then a low mechanical tone, identical to the others. Then the voice, faint, distorted, male. "Detective Finch, you've been listening in the wrong direction." Static swallowed the rest. The tech paused the playback, hands shaking. "This came from our system," he whispered. "Someone's inside our servers." Finch leaned in. "Trace it." They did. The signal bounced through dozens of proxies before landing on a local IP. The address shocked them all. It belonged to the Watkins residence. Harold Watkins, the friendly neighbor who had first mentioned the storage units. Finch and her team arrived at 27 Willow Lane by dawn. The house was empty, front door unlocked. Inside, furniture was covered with sheets, dust heavy on every surface. No signs of recent living, no Harold Watkins. But in the back room, the one facing Mara's kitchen window, they found an entire setup: speakers, a sound mixer, reels, and a stack of notes. Every page contained sketches of the neighborhood's layout, marked with sound lines and arrows. In the center, written in block letters, every song must be heard, every echo must return. On the floor sat a box labeled Mara Original Sessions. Finch crouched, lifted the lid, and froze. Inside were several mini audio tapes, but one wasn't labeled like the others. It read simply, "Return Playback, Night 7. When she played it, her breath caught. It wasn't Mara this time. It was her own voice. "Detective Finch, you shouldn't have listened." The sound of a chair scraping, a faint hum. Then again, that haunting melody. The one every neighbor heard before she disappeared.
Detective Laura Finch didn't go home. She couldn't. The melody looped endlessly in her head, quiet at first, then louder, like it was learning the shape of her thoughts. She sat in the dim light of the precinct's evidence room, surrounded by reels of tape and half-empty coffee cups. The last recording, her own voice whispering, "You shouldn't have listened," played back again and again. Every frequency test said the same thing. The voice was hers. Perfect match. But she had never said those words. She called Elliot from the audio lab. "Run a spectral map," she ordered. "I want to see how deep this thing goes." Elliot's analysis took 2 hours. When the data finally rendered, the screen lit up with layers of frequencies, dense, repeating patterns hidden beneath the melody. He leaned back, pale. "It's not just audio, Laura. Someone encoded images into the sound, like a spectrogram signature." She frowned. "Images of what?" He magnified the waveform. Slowly, pixel by pixel, a faint outline emerged. Rows of houses, perfectly lined along Willow Lane. And in the center of the image, a black square. The exact footprint of Room 9 in Mara Ellison's boarding house. Finch drove back to 27 Willow Lane as rain streaked across her windshield, the wipers unable to keep up. The neighborhood was still, dark. The house looked different now, emptier, like it knew it had been found out. She pushed open the creaking door, her flashlight cutting across the hallway. The song wasn't playing, but the silence felt alive. Room 9 waited at the top of the stairs. The wallpaper peeled slightly around the frame where evidence tape had once been. She stepped inside. The air was colder here, stale. Dust swirled in her flashlight beam. On the table where the dictaphone had once sat, there was now a small box of new cassette tapes, each labeled LF in neat black ink. Her initials. Again. She swallowed hard and opened one. Inside, a tape with no label, no timestamp. She slid it into her portable player, pressed play, and froze. The first voice was Harold Watkins, calm, composed. He said softly, "They think sound moves forward, but it remembers the way back." Then Mara's voice, not singing this time, pleading, "Please, Harold, don't." A sharp click cut her off. And then, to Finch's horror, she heard her own voice again. "You shouldn't have listened." She stumbled back, breath shallow. The floorboards creaked. Something metallic clinked softly in the wall behind her. She aimed her flashlight at the sound and noticed an uneven line along the plaster near the corner. A false panel. Using her pocket knife, she pried it open. Inside,
was a small cavity lined with wires and an old portable speaker, still humming faintly. Next to it, a digital recorder, its red light blinking. It had been running this entire time. The counter on the small screen read, "Recording, 12:03 a.m." Her radio crackled. Elliot's voice burst through, panicked. "Laura, you need to get out of there. The system, someone's feeding a live signal into the precinct network from your location. It's broadcasting audio." Broadcasting? Yeah, everything you're saying, everything you're hearing, it's looping through our servers. Finch grabbed the recorder, stuffed it into her coat, and bolted down the stairs. Outside, the rain had turned into a downpour, washing across the empty street. And then, as she reached her car, she froze. From every direction, windows, alleys, storm drains, came that same faint melody, the humming. Dozens of voices, layered imperfectly, overlapping into one sickening harmony. Every house on the block was playing it. Every neighbor heard the same song. By dawn, Cedarvale was in lockdown. Police shut off power to the neighborhood, cutting every external feed. Finch and her team mapped the source of the transmissions and discovered something worse. The signal wasn't coming from the houses. It was reflected, bouncing between multiple origin points like a mirror maze. The hub was still active. The Ecotone warehouse. When they breached the building, the air inside vibrated faintly with residual frequency. The lights flickered. Rows of equipment had been dismantled, stripped down to bare wires. But on one table sat a laptop still running, a single folder open on screen. Final playback. Room 9. Elliot's hands trembled as he clicked play. The audio began with silence, then a faint hum, then footsteps, then a woman's voice. Not Mara's, not Finch's, someone older. "You're late, detective. You were supposed to listen from the start." Finch's throat dried dry. "Who's that?" No one answered. Sound is memory. You can't erase what you record. You just pass it on. The hum deepened, the waveform on screen thickening into a visual map. The frequency traced a pattern of dots and lines, Morse code. Elliot decoded it quickly. The message read, "Room 9 never existed." That night, Finch returned to the station to file her final report, but her computer froze midway through typing. Every file name on the desktop changed simultaneously. The text glitched, letters rearranging themselves into a single phrase. Playback initiated. Night 7. She looked up, heart hammering. Across the evidence room, one of the confiscated radios, the one from Mara's kitchen, switched on by itself. Static. Then the song. Soft. Slow. Familiar. Finch's breathing quickened. She walked toward the sound, whispering, "You're not here. You're gone." But then, beneath the melody, came another sound. Footsteps. Not from the speaker. From behind her. She turned, but no one was there. Her radio crackled again. Elliot's voice, faint. "Laura? Are you still in the house?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The static deepened, filling the room like a pulse. The tape reels began spinning on their own, each aligning in sync with the next, repeating that same loop, the same breath between notes. The system was feeding itself, and on the monitor behind her, the waveform of her own breathing formed the melody pattern. The system wasn't recording her voice. It was recording her silence. At 3:12 a.m., power to the precinct cut out. The only sound left in the dark was the faint hum from the tape deck, repeating every few seconds. When morning came, Finch's car was found still parked outside, engine cold, driver's seat empty. On her desk inside the precinct lay a single cassette tape, labeled in clean black ink. LF Night 8. When the department played it, all they heard was 30 minutes of room tone. No voice, no movement, just that faint hum underneath. And at the 30-minute mark, a whisper. Every neighbor heard the same song before she disappeared. And the recording ended with 3 soft knocks. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, and the next case is already playing.